MLB today, we have just 7 games, I believe. And yeah, let's get started with the Colorado versus Miami game. All right, the Rockies versus the Marlins. As you can see, the money line here. Oh, by the way, before I get started, on the Patreon, we're going to have a new format. We're going to have a new format on the Patreon, just letting you know. And with the sports content, that is, we're going to have a new format. And yeah, we're going to go over the splits as well as the openings and how that applies to the current odds and the breakdowns of how the odds uh, go throughout the day, pretty much. But let's get started. Plus 168 for Colorado, minus 200 for Miami. Sorry about that, dude. Something with distracted me. But yeah, the spread plus 1.5, minus 128 cost for the Rockies, minus 1.5 spread at plus 106 cost for the Marlins. Over under is at 8. 114 minus 114 cost for the over, minus 106 cost for the under. Let's see where these splits are going. All right, as you can see, 89% going with Miami here, 75% going with Miami on the spread. And let's see why that could apply. This plus 106 is not a whole lot to pay out, so they could take a hit there. The bookies can take a hit there, especially when you have such a high money line for a baseball game, minus 200, relatively high for baseball. And it looks like Miami could be safe across the board as it seems, but this minus 128 is critical. That's decent. That's a decent cost for a spread. And only 25% of people are getting it. The only way I see Colorado, any indication they'll win this game is based off the run line, based off the spread. 25% must decrease, while this increases the cost of their spread, minus 128. Let's say they go to 22% of the money on the spread, Colorado that is, and minus 128 cost turns into minus 136, something like that. Then Colorado, you would have to consider Colorado getting the spread or even winning the money line if this 89, nearly 90% holds up. But just consider that. Over, under, 80, 84%, 88%, 84% of the betting going over, 88% of the money going over. Minus 114 over 8. Now, minus 114s and minus 106s hit about 50-50. It's not a significant difference like the minus 105, minus 115s, but I would join the public and go over there. All right, Milwaukee versus Cincinnati. Plus 104 for Milwaukee, minus 122 for Cincinnati. A little bit more than a pick'em game. Cincinnati is a favorite, but this minus 196 cost for the Brewers run line, plus 1.5 at minus 196, minus 1.5 at plus 162 for Cincinnati. And let's see where the money is going here. 85% of the money going on Milwaukee, plus 104. Looks like that could happen. Watch how that fluctuates. If that goes to the negatives, then that's where you want to consider Milwaukee right there. 59% Cincinnati going on the money, going with Cincinnati. 59%. Let's see. That is a significant total. They're not paying all that out. They are not paying all that out. Now, Cincinnati could win the game right here, but Milwaukee looks pretty decent on this run line right here, minus 196. Over under 9 runs. Minus 118 cost for the over, minus 104 cost for the under. Let's see where the money is going. Over is getting 71% of the betting and 80% of the money. And I would join the public and go over there. All right, Los Angeles and Boston. Los Angeles Angels versus Boston Red Sox. Plus 126 for LA, minus 148 for Boston. Spread is plus 1.5 at minus 156. Minus 1.5 at plus 130 for Boston. Over unders at 9.5, minus 115 for the over, minus 105 for the under. That 105 is a sweet spot, by the way. It hits more so than you think. With that being said, it's not many games today that have that minus 115 and minus 105. If that minus 105 holds up for the under at this 9.5, I would go under. But if it goes to any other cost right here, I would definitely go over 9.5 in this game. Now, Boston is approaching this minus 150 threshold here. They look pretty decent on the money line. They are getting most of the money, 60%. 96% are going with them on the spread, on the run line, at plus 130. This could be one of those games where the bookies could make hand over fist with this game. Minus 156, getting 96, well, getting only 4% of the money, which is minus 156, that is. Did I say that? I don't know. But getting 4% of the money. And the 60% is going at minus 148, which could end up minus 150 or higher. That could end up happening right there. But just keep that in mind when you're betting. Look for that betting in baseball. Look for that minus 150 threshold. Those hit more so than not, as well as the totals. Minus 105 cost, whichever one, over or under. All right. Detroit versus Chicago White Sox, minus 210, negative 210 for Detroit, plus 196 for Chicago White Sox. That is a decent, the highest cost for a money line today is the Detroit Tigers. Minus 134 cost for the Detroit Tigers at minus 1.5 spread. Run line for the White Sox is plus 1.5 at plus 112. Over under is at 8.5. Plus 100 going over, minus 122 going under. Let's see where the money is going in this one. All right, 83% going with Detroit in this one on the money line. 97% going with Detroit on the run line. And as you can see, their cost is relatively high for both. Minus 134 cost for their spread as well. Looks like you could join the public there, but this 97%, that's going to change because when the sharps go in, they're going to put money on Chicago. I'm going to tell you that now. 3%, they're going to put money on Chicago on the run line especially. Over under 8.5, plus 100 going over. So 79% going with the even one, 21% going under. I would fade the public and go under in that one. And let's go to the next one. San Diego versus San Francisco. Plus 146 money line for San Diego. San Francisco is getting minus 174. They're above that minus 150 threshold. Plus 1.5 at minus 142 cost for the Padres. Minus 1.5 at plus 118 cost for the Giants. Over under is the lowest of the day at 7. Minus 122 going over on the cost. Plus 100 going under on the cost. Let's see where the money is going. All right. So 87%. We'll start with the total. 88% of the betting going with the over. 87% of the money going with the over. I would fade the public and go with this minus 120. Where am I at? Go with a plus 100, that is, on the 7. That is a relatively low spread. They know most people are going to go here. So I would, and people are going to parlay that too. So I would go with the under in that one. That minus 174, they're above that minus 150. But in this kind of game, only 51% is pretty much dead even on the money line. Dead even. Watch how San Francisco's odds adjust based off where their money is going. If they start to head towards the 60th percentile on the money right here, on the money line, while they can either hold this over minus 170 or even go up to, let's say they could even go down. They can even go down to minus 160 or minus 156 or something like that. San Francisco could still manage to get this on the money line, that is. Now, San Diego minus 142 on the run line. They look pretty decent there. But San Diego looks like a team you could make money off of on the money line today, only if that scenario happens where their cost on the money line decreases to about 160, 158, and their money decreases here. That's the only way San Diego's gonna sweep right there. All right, Minnesota versus Oakland. Minus 162 cost for Minnesota, plus 136 for Oakland. Minus 1.5 run line at plus 100 cost, plus 1.5 run line at minus 120 cost for Oakland. First one is plus 100 is Minnesota, excuse me. Over under is 9. Minus 122 going over, plus 100 going under. All right. We will go with the 90% going with the going with the Twins on this one. 74% going with Minnesota on the spread as well. So they're pretty much dominating. This is early in the day though. They're dominating these costs right here. This is going to be one of those games where you want to watch this minus 120 for Oakland on the run line and make sure Minnesota maintains this. And as you can see, the odds are changing as we speak. Minus 118 now for Oakland. Minus 162 for Minnesota. You might want to consider where this minus 162 is for Minnesota. You might want to consider, make sure that holds above that minus 150 threshold, because that could decrease or it could go even higher. If it goes higher above that minus 162, while maintaining this above, let's say, it may not end up at 90 because the Sharps are going to go in and vote Oakland. The Sharps are the big, heavy bettors who bet regularly and win the most money. 85% probably. Let's say they go 85% for Minnesota and maintain this 70% here. And this decreases. This decreases to about 148. Then you want to consider going Oakland across the board. But Oakland looks decent on the run line, money line. Minnesota could take that. Over-unders at 9. Minus 122 cost going over. At that 56%, 57% of the betting, 56% of the money. Look pretty decent on the over in that one. All right, Mets versus Dodgers. Plus 136 cost for the Mets. Minus 162 for the Dodgers. Just flipped home and away like the previous game. Plus 1.5 run line at minus 146 cost. Minus 1.5 run line at plus 122 cost. Over under is at 9 at minus 110 cost even on the total. 61% of the money going with the Dodgers, 93% of the money going with the Dodgers on the run line here. So they think LA is going to sweep here. This minus 146 is really high for a spread. So look out for the Mets on the run line there. They're only getting 7%, but that's going to change though. When the Sharps go in, that's probably going to end up 15, 18% for the Mets. Money line is pretty much going to end up, it may even be a little higher for the Dodgers, but it may end up looking like that. Maybe about 65, 35, something like that. At that minus 162. But if you continue to see New York Mets, if you see their odds increase in their respective direction, in a positive direction. Let's say they go to plus 145. And they say this stays around 40%. Then that's when you can look at, okay, the Dodgers look like they could get the money line while the Mets get the run line. But if it goes the other way, the Mets look like they could take it across the board. They look like they could take this across the board. That is, especially this is a relatively high minus 146 cost for a run line. But just keep that in mind. Over under minus 110 cost even. Over unders at 9. 69% of the betting going over. 78% of the money going over. And that is a super high total. I would challenge that what, a 78%. That's not, it's high, but it's not exactly. That's going to change. I think this is probably a total that's going to be closer to 65-35, 60-40 than where it is now. But I will still join the public and go with the over on that one. But yeah, I will see you guys in the next video. Join the Patreon. Link is in the description and in the video. Pray every day. I've been Scott.